All right, good morning, everyone. Look at this. This is great. I'm pretty impressed that we're all here in this wonderful space, Teatro Goya. I don't know if you know, but maybe you didn't miss me, but I haven't been to the Spain Symposium in a couple of years, and so it's really great to be back. It's great to see all of you, a lot of familiar faces and new ones. Um, I was actually going to take a selfie. I don't know if I can get the house lights back up. This is really cool. All right, everyone, let's smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think I'm ready. Hey, guys. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here this morning. Again, it's really wonderful for me to have the chance to be here. Thank you for allowing me to participate in the Spain Symposium. And for those of you who are new to Liferay, for longtime customers, of course, you're the reason why we're here, and you're the ones that make it possible for us to do what we do. So we're very grateful to you. We're here in 2018, and since I think about 2015, we at Liferay have been talking about transformation. We've been talking about how do we, as companies that grew up in very traditional environments, change for a digital future. And it's actually kind of irritating because whenever this topic comes up, we talk about Amazon, right? Amazon, Amazon, Amazon. If it's not Amazon, it's like Airbnb or Uber, and we have these examples, and we think, oh man, like, I can't compete with Amazon, so please stop talking about them, right? Well, that's how we feel about it, but they're going on and they're they're marching forward, and they're doing new and crazy things every year. And you may have heard that they now have some places called Amazon Go. This is an internet business that grew up without having any stores, and now they're opening shops. And they're kind of these amazing places. You can walk into an Amazon Go, and as long as you have the app open on your phone, you don't have to check out. You can actually just put a bunch of things in your bag. You can put it even in your pocket, doesn't matter. And then you can just walk out the store. It's pretty amazing, right? Every time I come to Spain, sometimes I go to El Corte Inglés. And it's a really great experience. It's this huge mall. And yet, I'm sure if I walked out with something in my pocket, maybe you see me in the police station. And Carol and Jorge will have to come get me out. What else is Amazon doing? They bought a grocery store. In the US, we're very concerned about our health and our well-being. A lot of people are buying organic foods, cold-pressed foods. We're not eating gluten anymore. All kinds of crazy stuff, right? And there's this store called Whole Foods, and since probably about 10 years ago, they were really known for the quality of their produce. But we used to call them whole paycheck. And the reason why was that the food was so expensive that it would take your whole paycheck to go shopping there. Well, Amazon, earlier this year, I believe they bought Whole Foods, right? And one of the first things they did was to lower the prices. And one of the other things they did was they said, if you're a Prime customer, we will give you additional discounts, right? So one of the challenges of companies like Amazon that have been in the digital space is how do we replicate that experience? How do we take it into the physical world? How do we marry the digital with the physical? And they're doing that. And guess what? They're not stopping there. They're even going into possibly the healthcare market. So Jeff Bezos, along with who's that famous guy? The richest guy, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway. They're working together, and they are exploring new options for healthcare as Amazon being this disruptive player, right? So here I am again. It's been 3 years since I was here, and I'm still talking about Amazon. And meanwhile, you guys are working at companies like AXA, Telefonica, even El Corte Inglés, and you're dealing with this pressure. You're dealing with maybe the frustrations, the difficulties, the challenges of digital transformation. And you might be wondering, why is it so hard? Why are we struggling with this so much? And I believe it's natural for you to be struggling with this because the core question isn't, how do I figure out things like our content management system? How do I get a mobile app online? How do I make a new website? You see, these things, having a new website or a new app, these are incremental changes. They are adding a little bit of technological dressing on top of your existing business model. And what the Amazons and the Ubers of the world are forcing you to do is to not do that, but is to completely rethink your business. And ultimately, the question that we're all asking ourselves is this: how does technology help you to create differentiated products and differentiated experiences for your customers? And figuring that out takes time. So this morning, I thought we could take a look back into history to get some comfort as to our own experiences, how hard it's been, but also to get some maybe lessons on how we should think about our own digital transformation today. So as you know, the electric light bulb was not invented by Thomas Edison, but it was made commercially viable by him in 1879. And when Thomas Edison did this, electricity had actually been known about, and people had been working with it for about 100 years. I grew up in America, and so one of the first things we learned is that Benjamin Franklin flew a kite, and it got struck by lightning, and he discovered electricity. That was way back in the 1700s, before America was even a country. So it took them about 100 years, but finally in 1879, after a lot of trial and error, they got this thing to work. And so you would think, wow, we have this new technology. Let's use it right away. Let's switch from our old tech to our new tech. You would think that most companies would immediately embrace this. And some of them did. Some of them switched from their old steam power and they tried out electricity. But a lot of them ended up using the same old technology for another 30, 40, 50, or 60 years. And that would be like the equivalent today of being in an insurance company where you have no website, maybe no telephone even, and in order to take out a policy, you have to walk into the shop and talk to an agent, and that's like the only way to get an insurance policy. And yet, that's exactly what companies did. This is a photo of the Queen Street Mill in Burnley. It's in the northern part of England, which for a long time was known as being the center of manufacturing cotton fabrics. And this particular mill was actually in operation far into the 20th century. It was actually operational until about 1982. So even though better technology was available for a long time, even this mill never switched over to electric power. And if you think about the nature of steam power and the way that so much of the way that companies ran on steam power were oriented around that, you'll understand why. So let's take a look at that. So this is a video of the Queen Street Mill. After it shut down, they actually turned it into a museum, and they still run the plant the way that they did in the past. You can still see that they use coal power, that they burn that coal in a big furnace, which creates the steam pressure, and that pressure is what runs the whole thing, right? And that motor that you just saw drives that main shaft, and the main shaft is connected to every single thing in the whole factory. So these are all looms that weave fabric, and you can see that everything is running at the same time. And the reason why they had to do it that way is essentially because of the nature of steam power. Because you had that one coal-fired engine, and that drove the main shaft, and that main shaft drove everything in the factory, it actually had consequences for the way that everything ran. It's kind of like how before the internet, we all had to come to the office to work, but now a lot of you probably have days where you're able to work at home, or you take a vacation, but you're still accessible by your mobile phone, right? Technology changes the nature of our work environment. And, um, and so what would they have to do in order to take full advantage of electric power? Well, a lot of the early adopters, what they would do was they would just swap out the engine. They switched from steam to electricity, but they didn't change anything else about the way they did business. So this is a typical, a photo of a typical steam-powered mill back in the day, and you can see that everything is set up in rows and rows, and everything is really close together. Why did they have to do it that way? Because if you make things too far away from that central main shaft, you actually lose power efficiency, right? The other reason is you only have one on-off switch. Either the whole factory has to be running at the same time, or you have to shut the whole thing down, right? So for all of those reasons, they organize their work in this way. And maybe what those early adopters of electric power didn't understand about how to take advantage of new technology was that you had to actually change the way you work for it to be worth it. So here's an example. Once you switch from steam power to electricity, you don't have to have everyone so close together anymore. You can actually deliver the power locally anywhere your people are sitting. So what people started to do was reorganize. Instead of having everyone sitting in rows, they got the people who were weaving the fabric in one area, and then you had the people cutting and designing the fabric in another area. In other words, you could start to organize around the production process rather than around the needs of the technology. And as they started to do that, another thing that changed was that people started to have more flexibility. With steam power, everyone has to show up at 8 in the morning, they start running the factory, everyone takes a break at 12 or 12:30, you get 30 minutes for lunch, and then you're back at work. Everyone has to be on that same very strict schedule. But once you have electricity, you can just turn it on and off for yourself, right? So workers like this one, let's say they're trying to figure out a new design for their cotton fabric. They could go for a walk, they can think about it for a while, they can draw inspiration from nature, and then come back to their station when they're ready. And what this means is that then the kind of worker that you want to work is no longer someone who really needs a job, no longer someone who's going to be very regimented in their work. You want people who are creative and who care about quality. You care about people more for their individual talent rather than how much they're going to fall in line. So then you have to change your hiring practices, you change the interview process. All of these changes need to be made, right? And so when you think about it, it's like, oh man, I can put in this new electric power station, but if I want to take advantage of it, I need to change everything. And that is exactly the moment that you and I, that all of us in this room are in today. We can't just throw a website on there. We can't just change our paper forms to Google Forms or Liferay Forms. We need to think, well, maybe I already know a lot of things about my customer. I can collect that information over time, naturally in the course of the relationship. And I'm not going to use a form for that, or the kind of form I use, I'm going to hide it in a chat interface, or I'm going to use a combination of that and other things, conversations that I have on the phone or in person. So there's all kinds of new ways of doing business that are enabled by our technology, but we just haven't figured it out yet. So what do we have to do in order to not just, create that new website, that new mobile app, but actually change the way we do business? Well, I think one major thing that we've realized at Liferay this year is that we can't just speak to IT. We can't just say, hey, we've got this great platform, it checks all your boxes, has all these great features. And we can't turn our backs on IT and say, we don't care about you anymore, we just want to talk to marketing and customer service because they have the business problem and we want to solve it for them. We realize that we need to be this facilitator, and we need to be in this conversation where IT is no longer just worrying about the software and the servers and the infrastructure, but IT leaders are actually the ones who sit down with the business and say, what is it you're really trying to do? You're asking for a website, you're asking for a mobile app, but what's the real business problem you're trying to solve? Because if, as an IT person, I can understand that, then maybe I'll come up with something that's even better than the solution you thought you wanted. That's the challenge. A lot of you are probably in IT in this room, a lot of you are in business, but we need to change the way we work together. We can't just have the business folks coming up with all the answers and saying, all right, you guys just go build this. We need to be working together. Now, let me give you a couple of examples of this. So, in the US, actually in Southern California, near where Liferay is headquartered, there's a new startup called Heal. And in Europe, everyone knows, and you kind of laugh, you kind of cry, the healthcare system in America is messed up, right? Everything about insurance and the hospital system and doctors are burnt out. When you visit the doctor in the US, you get maybe 8 minutes of time with that doctor. So you get there, the receptionist checks your insurance, and then maybe a nurse takes your blood pressure and they take your blood, and then you wait in this room, probably for about half an hour. The doctor comes in, and they'll be like, hey, so how are you doing today? What's wrong? And then you say, well, doc, this thing's been hurting. And they actually did research on this. After 11 seconds, the doctor stops listening. And it's not their fault, it's the system. The system's completely broken. And so Heal is a startup, and they're fixing this problem. And the value proposition they're giving you is for the same cost that it would cost you as your copay. In the US, when you visit the doctor, you have to pay like $30, and then the insurance company should pay for the rest. But for $30, if you call a doctor with Heal, within 2 hours, there will be a real bona fide doctor at your doorstep visiting you in the comfort of your own home. And if you don't have insurance, it only costs you $99, which probably costs you less than if you were to go to the emergency room by yourself, certainly in terms of financial cost, but in terms of time and stress and all of this stuff. So it's pretty amazing what they're doing. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, that's great, another startup story, that has nothing to do with us. We're the ones who have to deal with the complex, messy system in my industry. Well, the point I want to make is not like, well, here's this cool startup, and they're not like you, so too bad. The point is that one of the reasons why Heal came to be is because of this man. This is the founder. His name is Nick Desai. And that is his son. He's a little bit older now, but when his son was 1 year old, he had a lot of chronic health problems. And so Nick Desai and his wife, they were in and out of the hospital all the time. And they would wait in the waiting room. They'd be there for 3 hours, 4 hours. They didn't know what was wrong with him. Doctors weren't giving him a straight answer. He was anxious all the time. He was frustrated. And he could just experience firsthand how broken the healthcare system was. Now, Nick's an IT guy. He went to Irvine and UCLA. He has a master's in IT. And so he was an IT guy, but he was an IT guy that felt and understood the business problem he was trying to solve. And so that's what I'm trying to say is, if we as IT leaders can feel the pain that business feels and understand it deeply, I think we'll do a much better job of solving things for them. Let me give you another example. Mount Sinai Healthcare Group in the New York area, they're actually a customer of Liferay, and they built a portal using Liferay, which is fine. But that portal was part of something much larger than just self-service through a portal. This is one of the ads that they ran in newspaper and print during the time. And it says, if our beds are filled, it means we failed. Which is pretty counterintuitive for a hospital. You would think, well, you want people to come to the hospital. You want them to get their care there. And this is pretty cool because actually what Mount Sinai realized was that even though they get paid, even though their doctors are busy when their beds are filled, it wasn't fulfilling their mission. And what is their mission as a hospital is for people to be healthy, right? They don't want people to come to the hospital. It's a funny thing. If you're working for an insurance company, you probably experience the same thing. Your happiest customers are the ones that don't have to use your services at all. And so what was Mount Sinai doing? Well, they were actually entering into a partnership. So they realized that their job is not to get people to the hospital, it's actually to get people to stay healthy. And so they said, we need to work in partnership. We can't solve this problem alone. Our people, they live in the community of New York. They're all over the place. And we're just in this one physical location over here. So working with the City of New York has a program called Visiting Nurses. And Visiting Nurses is a lower cost way for patients to get health care at home. So Mount Sinai decided that through this partner portal, along with video conferencing technology and taking patient health records into a centralized database, which could then be accessed through a mobile device, they empowered those nurses to make those home visitations, see the patients in their own environment, and then use technology to make it possible for doctors who are still based back in the hospital to provide care. And so they're able to video conference the doctor in, the nurse has access to all of the patient's records, they're able to see the environment in which they live. The patient might be saying, oh yeah, I'm not eating fatty foods anymore, but the nurse is able to see a bag of chips on the counter, right? So in all sorts of ways, this is a much better solution to the problem of patient wellness, and it's made possible by technology, but technology isn't the goal. Now, what does this have to do with you? I saw a lot of the Liferay developers in the room, and the engineering group and I, we have a love-hate relationship because I'm always telling them, it's great that we're building all these features, but they need to provide business value. And I thought about this example. So you're a nurse, and you go to the patient, and then you need to sign into this portal in order to get the health records of the employee. Well, imagine that there is a baby crying in the next room, and your patient is getting really anxious, and they're breathing heavily because maybe they have heart palpitations or something like that. And so if you're the nurse in that situation, in that room, and you forget your password, right? And you have to check your email and get a text message, and then do like a capture verification in order to get your password, in order to access this patient's health record, when all of these stressful things are going on at the same time, it's probably not a great solution, right? But if you as the developer or the IT person understood that that was going on, I think you would probably create a much better system for password recovery. So that's just a small example, and there's so many I think that we could think of where IT can really do a much better job if they understand the problem that they're trying to solve. Okay. Well, let me close with this, because this is a Liferay conference. You're here to learn about Liferay and to talk about Liferay. What does all this mean for Liferay? I think Liferay is doing our job when our technology gets out of the way of your transformation. I talked about the example of electricity this morning. And I thought the best example of this was, this is a photo of a guy working late at night in an office by himself. And you can see that none of the other lights are on, right? And this is something we all take for granted today. This is something that, I know a lot of people at Liferay work really hard. probably didn't think about it when you switched on the lights or when the sensors kept the lights on in the office. Um, and that's kind of the same thing we want to achieve with Liferay. When Liferay is doing our job, when our platform delivers the value for your business to do its transformation, you're not going to talk about Liferay. You're going to talk about your customer experience. You're going to talk about how your students are better educated than everyone else at the other universities, or how you're able to deliver government services more cheaply to your constituents. You're going to talk about how in retail, you're transforming the experience and it's seamless. That's what we want to achieve. So Jorge Ferrer, our VP of Engineering, is going to come up next, and he's going to talk about this in greater detail. But one of the themes that you'll see at this conference is that the products that we're building and releasing in 2018, we've done a lot more to try to understand the business you're building and to deliver business value through the products. So whether it's Commerce Analytics Cloud or 7.1, you'll see that the features we built try to anticipate your business needs. And then on the other end of the spectrum, what you'll see with our newest cloud offering, DXP Cloud, is that we want to free you as IT, because the last thing you need to do if you're trying to understand your business problem is to figure out, how do I get elastic demand to work? How do I set up my dev, test, and production environments? How do I set up backups and continuous integration? These are all the questions that a vendor like Liferay can help you answer more easily so that you can focus on the business. Another thing we're announcing this year is Liferay University. So up until now, the only way you could get trained on Liferay was to have an in-person trainer or to look at Liferay's documentation online, which has gotten much, much better over the years, but is still pretty difficult to navigate. And so Liferay University is a new, fully online, video-based training system, and it covers everything from how do I navigate OSGI as a new developer on Liferay to how do I, as an administrator, use Analytics Cloud, and even things like how do I, as a marketer or a business user, use the new web experience management system. It's all there, it's online. You can take the courses whenever you want, and some of the courses are actually free. And so this is just another way that we as a vendor can make it a lot easier for you to get business value out of your technology investment. And then finally, this conference. At the end of the day, I told Carol that I skipped the Spain Symposium because we have like 7 or 8 events throughout the world every year. And I have always personally tried to make it to every event. And at some point, I just had to start leaving a couple of them out. And they do such a great job here at Liferay Spain that I felt like, well, who wants to listen to a guy talk in English for 30 minutes about Amazon again? So that's one of the reasons why I haven't been here in a few years. But conferences like this are valuable. And that's why I personally make the effort to come out. There's no better chance for me to meet our customers, partners, and employees, to talk with you guys and understand for myself what are the problems you're trying to solve. And so I hope that you will make the most of that as well. Okay, I think I have about 5 minutes left. Okay, so digital transformation, it's pretty daunting, I'll be honest. And even at Liferay, we've been wrestling with it for the last 5 to 6 years. How do we change as an organization? How do we grow up? How do we think differently about the way we do things? All of you probably have thought at some point, why isn't Liferay doing more with the cloud? And it's taken us a while. We finally figured it out, but it was difficult. And the other thing that we've realized this year is that a lot of our customers, you're in quite traditional businesses, you're in B2B businesses sometimes, or you're in B2C, but it's not retail, and so it's a lot more complex. You have a longer life cycle for your customer. The answers aren't going to be as simple as they are for an Amazon or an Uber. It's not just go out and disrupt something and throw away the rule book and just do everything different. You're going to have to navigate the regulations, your existing partners, your supply chains, and all of those things, even as you transform. So I thought it would be encouraging for all of us to look at an example of a company that is beating the odds in many significant ways. This is another American example. It's a company called Costco. I don't know if you have one here in Madrid. And you'll probably look at this example and think, oh, that's so American. Costco is a thriving retail business. In an environment where people are saying, retail, there's so much bad news. Companies that have been around for 50 or 100 years are closing. 10 major retailers closing stores in 2018. Our malls are empty, all this stuff. Everyone is going online. In this environment, Costco is a $129 billion revenue business. They are the second largest retailer after Walmart, and they are ahead of Amazon by 3 places. And what do they do? Well, Costco is, it's a membership-based retail experience, and they sell things in bulk. So you don't buy like a little thing of ketchup, you buy 3 64-ounce bottles of ketchup at the same time, right? And there's probably lots of preservatives in there, so you don't have to worry about it. But in the US, we have these big families with like 3 or 4 kids, and we go through this. So you buy 132 ounces of ketchup at once, and it costs you $8.30, which is a lot to spend on ketchup. And so that's actually good for Costco because it means they're selling a lot. But for you as a consumer, you're actually paying almost half the cost that you would at a regular retail grocery store. And so that's good for the customer, right? And Costco is this funny business where even though they're retail, even though they have physical locations throughout the world, their revenues are growing. So they're beating the odds, they're bucking the trends. Now in this revenue figure, you can see at the top, there's this orange bar, and that is the part that they make from membership fees. In order to shop at Costco, you have to pay $60 a year. I don't know how many of you are Amazon Prime subscribers, but it's something like that, right? Okay, we have some of you. Prime just raised their cost by about $20, but most people are probably staying on because of the value of the membership. Costco makes its profits from the memberships. 75% of their profit comes from that little orange bar. What does it cost them to sign up a new member? Almost nothing, maybe the paperwork. But all of that is an incremental profit, right? What that means is that because, so they have these low prices, they sell in bulk, that attracts more members. The more members they have, the more their profit they make from the memberships and not from the goods. That means they're selling more, which means they have more leverage with their suppliers, which means they can lower the prices even more, which means more and more people have a reason to become members. It's an ingenious model, and it works. So if you've never been inside a Costco, this is what it looks like. One of the things that they've done, in addition to the membership model, is that they've optimized their operations. So you'll notice at the bottom of this thing, there's a blue piece of wood. That's the pallet. So the forklift takes the thing off of the truck and puts it directly at the store. So you don't have to pay a guy to move the things from the back storage to the shelves and to like rotate things. Literally, they just take it from the truck into the store. So they don't have to pay for warehouses, they don't have to pay for workers. They've optimized their operations around this model. In fact, this particular picture shows that they've even worked with the manufacturers to have special packaging. So this is a Costco optimized package that makes it possible for them to do this. And their warehouse just has rows and rows of this stuff. It comes directly from the trucks into the warehouse. What's the other thing they do? They actually pay their workers, on average, 50% more than you get paid at Amazon or Walmart. One of the biggest challenges of running any business is finding, training, and retaining employees. And by paying far higher than market wage to these workers, Most of them keep working at Costco for a very long time. They have excellent benefits. It's a great job. And what is the result of all this? Ultimately, they're doing this in a way that aligns with what the customer wants. This is a quote from their former CEO that says, when we look at a product, we don't ask, how can we charge more for it? We say, how can we drive that price down? And I think what's amazing about their story is two things. One, it's always a great thing when you see a company succeed in a way that aligns with the needs of their customer. But second, they've done all of this by optimizing their business model and operations without any technology involved. So for all of you in this room that's wrestling with this, maybe the ultimate point is that the technology is going to help you get there, but ultimately transformation is going to come from your own ingenuity, from your own deep understanding of the problems you're solving, and ultimately from your understanding and your commitment to delivering for your customer. And I think I can speak for all of us here at Liferay when we say that that is our goal as well. I hope you see that at this event, and if you don't, come talk to us. We want to fix that. Thank you very much.